Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the Emax Easy Pilot Pro. The Easy Pilot name might be familiar with you, but this is not the same as what they previously launched. This is more performance based, but also has budget in mind. And it not only comes with this, but it also comes with the Transporter 2 FPV goggles, which look very similar to what we've seen before, but there's a slight difference that we'll discuss as we get into it. And ready to fly kits, I think, are really popular because it can eliminate a lot of the confusion or the delay in going from making your purchase to actually flying. There's really two things about this that stick out to me is everything's all set up. You're going to find the radio is already bound to the quad. Betaflight in the quad is already set up to the radio, so your switches already function and you have your flight modes set up. They even have some rates with some expo in there, which is probably good for starter, making the sticks a little bit less responsive, and you can remove that and make the sticks more responsive as you get comfortable. The radio also, you can plug that into a simulator and you can fly. I used Tiny Whoop Go in this particular example, and the radio does charge as well as the simulator USB access is all through the same port here on the bottom. I think some would prefer that be on the top, but it's on the bottom. There is one thing that you'll probably want to change on this before you get to flying it, and that is the VTX, the video reception. But we'll get to that here a little bit later in the video. While this looks very, very similar, there are some very serious changes that they've made, and some of those changes have to do with the price point to get it kind of between the Easy Pilot and the ready to fly standard performance-based Tiny Hawk kit, which this shape is oftentimes referred to as a Tiny Hawk, and because it's got prop protection, sometimes it's referred to as a Whoop. Kind of depends on how traditional you are with it. Now this is a 1S quad, so it comes with these Emax 450 milliamp 1S batteries. It just comes with one. You do also get a charger that you plug into a USB. I would encourage you to use a cell phone wall wart or plug into the wall sort of charging brick to charge this 6-port PH20 connector based batteries. You also get an extra set of props. You get a couple of manuals. You get a little set of stickers. As I mentioned, these goggles. One thing about the goggles that can be really handy, especially if you move on from these goggles, is the separate. So you could actually later on say you buy a different set of goggles, because most of us tend to upgrade over time, but this would definitely get you started. You can hand this to somebody and share your flights with someone, and you don't have to worry about their focal distance, or maybe they wear glasses like I do. So that's really handy. And if you don't necessarily have somebody to give this to, you could use this on your desk later on as, just kind of a bench monitor. I've got one sitting over there, been using it for years. So when I'm building or setting up a quad, I have something real easy I can look at to make sure it's set up like I want to and it's functioning like I want it to. So kind of handy. And it does separate. Also, something to note about this is that just like the original transporter, it does telescope out. So it comes out, you can see the notches here on the side. We've got these 3 notches. So this adjusts the focal distance. I won't say it'll work perfectly for everyone. Box goggles tend to be a little bit more forgiving for those of us that wear glasses, but unfortunately for me, in my particular prescription, I couldn't quite get this into focus. I needed probably one more notch of extension on this in order to be able to focus it cleanly. So you'll find that during my videos, I am using my traditional Orca goggles to fly this kit, but I will show you what it looks like, kind of a representation by sticking a camera in there during a flight that I had. Also note it has this, I would call it a rubber gasket around the extension, and that helps to make sure that we don't get extra dust and debris, and light leak doesn't get in through there. It's very adjustable, not only with the telescoping, but also the head strap. It should fit most heads. I have a really, really big head. I wear 7 3/4 fitted hats. If I've got a haircut, sometimes I have to get bigger if it's getting a little bit long. But this fits my giant head. Also, it should shrink down. We have multiple adjustments that we can make on both sides, as well as the top, the third strap, where if your head's smaller than mine, it can definitely shrink down too. Something you'll note about the monitor, it has a little pin here on the bottom, so you can mount that to a tripod or anything else, and it does come with some mounting gear. Also on the radio, there's the little slider piece in there. Let me block my face so you can see that. Right inside there is a void to where you can slide a piece that they include in the kit, and you can mount the monitor to the top of your radio. Some people like to fly where they have the radio and they're just looking at the screen. That's perfectly fine. I can't do it, but if you can, this has got that option. The radio also has this lanyard or this loop right here to where you could put in a neck strap. So if you wanted the radio to hang from your neck on something like this happens to be an Emax neck lanyard. You put it around your head here, and this helps to balance the radio at a particular spot where you like it. That way you don't have to worry about holding on to the handle. But it doesn't come with a neck strap, so you're going to have to buy that separately. And if we jump back to the Easy Pilot name, some of you may have already seen this. This is the original Easy Pilot. Similar in some regards in that it still has prop protection. This one's smaller, this one's brushed. What we're looking at today in this kit, the Easy Pilot Pro, it's much more performance-based. And I think if you've seen this and you're comparing it to that, not really the same. I think the camera might be similar, but everything else is pretty different. And one of the things that makes this much more beginner-friendly is you see these spurs or the prop protection and how it attaches to the arms or the motor mounts of the frame. And these are much thicker than they've been in the past. So that should help it with its rigidity for flight performance as well as its durability. So these spurs should not break nearly as frequently as they were if they break at all. The camera is a traditional CMOS camera. So in the material that I've seen talking about this camera, it has talked about this being in a locked position, but that is just not my experience from what I see. The camera does have an internal mount that has two screws, both at the top and the bottom, and I did have to tighten those. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. But it also has these two screws on the sides horizontally, and those screws allow us to adjust the camera angle. So if it holds true that this is actually how it's coming to market, which I expect it to, just the materials that were included in my kit were just a slightly inaccurate, maybe a change after the fact, you should be able to adjust the camera angle. So if you want to go slower, maybe you have a smaller space inside you're flying, you just bring the camera angle down. And maybe if you're outside and you want to fly faster, just bring the camera angle on up. Okay, we're going to start off with our flight inside. You see there in the bottom right hand corner, we've got air. That says air mode. And when you don't have angle or horizon mode enabled, it'll show air mode. And that means you're flying without any stabilization. So the quad isn't trying to level itself out at any time. Of course, below that, we've also got the timer. So that's our flight time, or that's how long the quad has been armed and the props have been spinning. In the lower left is our battery voltage. It's only one cell, so we just have a single voltage down there. Top left is our throttle position to give you an idea how heavy I'm being on the throttle, because our flight time always varies. The more throttle you're giving it, maybe you're flying faster, maybe you're doing bigger moves outside. The shorter our flight time is because it requires more energy of the battery in order to be higher on the throttle. And then our RSSI is on the right hand side. That gives us our control link signal strength. And then above that, kind of shifted slightly to the left, is our VTX. That information is showing us that it looks like it says Pro R. Well, the R is race band, the channel is 8, and I am running on 200 milliwatts on the VTX. So this needs to be unlocked. When you get it, you won't have all the channels and bands available to you because it will come locked due to, I think it has to do with ham licensing and sales restrictions. To run 200 milliwatt or above 25 milliwatt, you're supposed to have a ham license, and also some of the frequencies that aren't available initially, you're supposed to have a ham license for as well. But I'll show you how to unlock that. It's not terrible, but it's a little bit of a three-handed operation, so if you have someone who can help you, it'll work out, but I'll show you how to do it by yourself as well. Also, your position if you're flying inside is very critical in these cases. I fly at the table. We see it fly by every time I come by the kitchen area there. And I have found that my reception isn't nearly as good if I move to other parts of the house. It might be good in that immediate area, but when I get down to the basement, then my reception starts to break up. So if you were trying to fly inside, the best tips I can give you is to fly race band 8, which gets you up above your Wi-Fi signal, which most homes do have Wi-Fi in them, even businesses. And then to also try different locations within your house. Of course, different antennas on your video reception for your monitor, your goggles will also help. And there's also, much more expensive goggles that you can go to that have better modules in them, or better modules you can buy to put in them. Of course, oftentimes when you get more money, you get a little better performance on things like that, but sometimes it's a lot more money to get just a little bit better performance. But I'll show you the reception that we get when I do the screen recording view. Also note that I have a secondary camera that I am recording audio from. Yours will not have this audio. I'm blending the audio from that secondary camera into this flight recording so you know what it sounds like flying in space like this. I think it also makes the videos just more fun, and I enjoy it, and I think most of the people who come to the channel enjoy having that little bit of flight audio. So our flight's gotten over 3 minutes. I think this flight comes a touch over 3 minutes and 30 seconds. For the most part, I found my flights around the 3 minutes to 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Again, it depends on how you fly, on how long your flight time will be. It'll be longer if you're flying a little less aggressively. It'll be shorter if you're flying more aggressively. Also, if you look at my other indoor flight footage, you might think this one doesn't fly as well because I'm not quite as smooth, but keep in mind, this isn't the radio that I tend to use on a daily basis, but this radio is perfectly serviceable, and it's much better than Emax past offerings. You see, we've landed, and our battery voltage is coming up to 3.6 volts, so our battery is in good shape. Okay, here's a flight sample of me flying in horizon mode. Horizon mode is like angle mode in that the quad is always going to be self-stabilizing. There are several differences that I don't think are critical for beginners to understand right away. So just know that, this is less smooth than what you just saw, but the quad is always trying to level itself. I'm not terribly effective in flying this mode because I do fly in acro or rate mode or without the quad trying to stabilize itself. So it's less smooth, but that's to be expected. Many very talented racing pilots for indoor quads fly in angle mode. Angle mode will limit how much you can pitch or roll. You can change those settings as you become more comfortable. It also will keep you from being able to flip entirely over. Now, horizon mode will allow you to flip all the way over. It kind of unlocks that self-stabilization at the very end of the stick inputs. So you will be able to do flips and rolls with horizon mode, which can be kind of exciting when you're starting out. But I wanted to give you a sample of, additionally me flying in horizon mode, which is similar to angle mode, and how it looks in my hands. I think I could do a lot better if I spent a lot more time doing this, but as much as I fly, I tend to try on each indoor quad that I get, I tend to try either angle or horizon mode, and I just don't get it. It's so foreign to me. It's almost as though I just can't learn to fly in two different modes. I think after almost 6 years of flying these things and trying, I should give up the ghost on thinking that I am going to be very smooth with horizon or angle mode. I'm sufficient to get around, but I'm definitely not smooth. So this is a sample of my screen recording, and quite honestly, I'm really disappointed because I don't think this camera did very well at all at focusing on the screen. So please try to ignore the image quality. What I can tell you is these goggles are on par with what you find in other ready-to-fly kits. They're not going to be the most expensive, best-looking panels that you ever looked at, but they are definitely sufficient, and they're serviceable. I would say what you can take from this is more about the reception of the video inside the goggles, the video receiving module. And again, I'm playing Raceband 8. I'm flying at 200 milliwatts in my house in a specific location because I found it works best. And you can also compare this reception to the DVR that I showed you previously, and that is with the Orca goggles, the Orca FPV goggles, which are the secondary goggles, or are they called the pilots? It's the second version of the Orca goggles with a rapid fire module. Now that combination themselves is, $750. I might be undershooting that a bit. I'm kind of forgetting my pricing, but I've got another $40 into antennas. So that goggle setup costs twice as much as this entire setup. And speaking of cost, this is supposed to come in at $239. So it will be much more budget friendly for those that are looking to get started than other Emax offerings, but it'll also offer more performance than the initial Easy Pilot offering that Emax has available. So I alluded to this earlier about unlocking the VTX. Of course, make sure you have your ham license. One of the things I get concerned about is where people who are starting out might use something metal. You see that there's a button right down there. Well, if that slides off and touches one of those little tiny components down there and we have a battery plugged in, it could short this out. So I always tend to recommend something that's not conductive. I use a brush, from one of my kids, and I've kind of taking the end off of it a little bit so to make a flat spot up here. And so I push the button down, and you can feel it click when you do that, and then I plug in a battery. Now obviously with this setup, as I said, it was kind of a three-handed operation. So one of the keys to me being able to do these things by myself is a blue tack. I know it looks gray, but honestly, it's called blue tack. I've talked about this often. It's blue tack. This is the good stuff. You can use this little ball. It's got to be 2, maybe more years old. And I use it all the time for all sorts of different things. So if you're looking for something that can help you on the desk to do your quad tasks or other household tasks, blue tack stays pliable. You can also use rubber bands, or you can get one of those helping hands, what have you. So I'm going to take part of my ball, and I'm going to stick it firmly down to my desk here. I got to press this down in here, but I want to give myself something to push my pigtail in. So then I'm going to stretch my pigtail out just a touch, and I'm going to kind of push it firmly down in there. Okay, so I've got my pigtail, and I've got my quad, and I've got my battery. I want to make sure I know which my orientation is, so the battery should go in this way. Get this out of the way here. Come on, go in. Go in. There we go. Okay, so now the operation. Hopefully you can see this. So I'm going to press down with the button, and I'm going to feel the button click down. And I want to keep this very steady, because if I slide off that button, it won't unlock. This will actually lock mine again, so I'll have to go through the unlocking phase again afterwards. And then plug this in and let off. That should unlock your VTX to where you can select any channel. The first test I would suggest you do is to change the milliwatt to 200 milliwatts and see if it actually allows you to do that. So if you change it to 200 milliwatts and then you save as you exit out of the OSD, and how you get into the OSD is left stick full forward and right. Navigate down to VTX, change the power, save on your way out, and then unplug the battery and replug it back in. Go back into the OSD, back into the VTX setting, and see if it's still at 200 milliwatt. If it is, you're all set. Before we get into beta flight and what the switches do, which I'll cover here at the end, note that you probably shouldn't use these trim switches, because it's probably just going to make your quad do weird things. You probably want to check the manual, look at calibrating your sticks before you use the trims. We've got this power button right here in the middle. You can just press and hold. Okay, we got pretty easy to read lights. Tells us that our radio is on, ready to connect to the quad. Always turn your radio on first. And this tells us if we're charging. So we plug that in, we get a light over here. Also on the back, it's important to note that it uses an 18650, and the plus side goes over here and the minus side goes over here. It does come with this 18650, or at least mine did, but check your product description. I'll have links to where this is available down below. So let's connect the quad to Betaflight, and I can show you which switches do what on the Betaflight. Let's go down to the receiver page here, and I'm going to move these, and you'll see the aux channels on which they're associated to. So this is a 3 position. We see that's aux 2. This one up here is aux 4. That's a 2 position. This one here is aux 1. It's a 3 position switch because we get 3 values. And down here is aux 3. We get 2 values. Now when we go down to the motors, and you don't have to know this. This is set up for you. Excuse me, I said motors a minute ago. I meant modes. You don't have to know this. You can just get the quad out, charge your batteries, charge your goggle, charge your radio, and go fly it with this information. Let's go through the modes real quick. So over here is our arm switch. So you'll note when I move this, it goes and moves to the right. Now, because we've got USB plugged in, it says arm disabled. That's a safety measure. So when you unplug USB, this wouldn't be a problem as long as your throttle stick is full down. We don't want our quads arming when our throttle is up. So this is our arming switch right here. As it's currently set up, all the way down arms the quad. Over here we have our different modes. You can see I've moved this switch down one spot and went into horizon mode. If I move it down another spot, now angle and horizon mode are not active. Therefore, acro or rate mode is active. Air mode shows on the OSD because it's kind of a mode as far as Betaflight considers, but it's kind of on all the time unless you disable it. Also up here is our beeper, so we can make the motors beep. It's not very loud, so if you go down far away or in grass, you're going to have to get close before you're going to hear it. And final switch down here is flip over crash. So if you're inside and you land upside down or crash upside down, you can disarm. So you need to be disarm is over here, so I need to be disarmed. I can turn on the flip over crash, rearm, and then give the right stick some input to flip myself over, and then disarm. Take the flip over after crash off, rearm, and then I'm back off in the air and flying. It's kind of a neat feature. Might take a little bit of time to get used to, but it's there for us just as it is in all quads with Betaflight. So as is normally the case, the ready to fly aspect is all ready to go. You don't have to load Betaflight, the application, and learn all those things. You can, as I said, charge stuff up and go out and fly. Or you could choose to start with a simulator, as I showed you earlier in the video. I use TinyWhoop Go. It is a free one, and it's micro, so it kind of fits this format. And you just plug it into the USB. Gets you some, what I call, free flight experience, because oftentimes when we go flying, we break stuff. Hopefully not this, because they have beefed it up for those purposes of getting started and doing a lot more crashing than maybe you do later on. So at $239, it puts it kind of in between price points as far as the Emax Ready to Fly offerings. It gives you more performance than the original Easy Pilot, and not quite as many of the feature-rich components that you might find in the Tiny Hawk Ready to Fly kit. So if it's something that you do want to consider, I'll have links down in the video description that you can check out some of the resellers. We should have all sorts of videos available today. I apologize I didn't have any outdoor footage to show you. Unfortunately, since I've gotten back from vacation, it has been terrible cold. 4 degrees today was the high. 4. And the wind was blowing 12 miles an hour. I can't fly in that. Yeah, I've tried flying on gloves. I've tried those little hand warmer things you put around your radio. Doesn't work for me. I guess in some regards I'm a little bit of a fair weather flyer. If it had been up above, say, 38, I'd have probably went out and flown it outside. But not this time. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the comment section below. I appreciate your time. And thanks for watching.